All right, so I'm Dr. Kimberlee Woods, and this is day one of the Master 3-day Master class, and we're talking today about creating with sacred geometry. The first question that I have for you, and I was just saying, don't worry about it because there's only two people on right now. If you don't feel like answering, I will just pick up from where we left off, or if you don't answer. So don't feel pressure. At any point, if you have questions, you can take yourself off mute and you can ask questions. You can type them in the chat. If you don't want to be seen or heard, you can take your name off and just type a question and it seems anonymous. So there's no, as they always say, there's no stupid question. Sacred geometry is hard for people. It seems complex, and people just hear the word geometry, and anybody who's math phobic is running for the hills. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things today, and some are on the more simple, basic level, and some are more complex. So it's okay that you maybe haven't seen it, don't know it. Just know also that I have a lot of other classes that can take you deeper into something that sounds interesting to you. All right, so my first question is, what is sacred geometry? So this is a question that I have for people in general. I want you to think about it. If you have a sense, you could take yourself off mute and save some things. If you want, you can type something in. If you have no idea, you have to take yourself off mute. Brigitte, I said Brigitte, but it's Brigitte.
Well, actually, in Scandinavian, it's Birgitte.
In Birgitte. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you for
perfect.
that.
Yeah. Well, to me, I only know a little bit about sacred geometry, and for me, it's from the yoga world where we use the chakra symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, today I was working with, Anahata chakra, which is a combination of more symbols in one that shows the energy center of the heart, where it's like two triangles opposite. One is male and one is female, and when you put them together, it's a six-pointed star, and then you have the whole around it, and it's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well,
just an
and
example.
it is an example, and if you think about it, where did those symbols come from? I mean, somebody got them from spirit, right? And said, this symbol is what I see represented. Maybe they saw it there, they felt it there. It came from us. We put it out and said, this is what represents this chakra. So this is how it goes, that sacred shapes, different shapes, represents feelings, areas of the body, a certain kind of energy, what's being brought in. In terms of sacred geometry, I'm just going to talk today a little bit about, some will refer to it as a golden braid, but it's a combination of numbers, like sighted figures. You talked about a triangle up that represents the masculine, like a phallus symbol, can also represent us above, and the triangle down, which is like a womb, right? It's a feminine and it's holding things, and can also represent as below. So we have these numbers, these sides, these shapes, these colors, patterns, art, music, harmonics, all of that is making this braid of this web, this grid of energy. And that's what I'm going to be talking today about with regards to sacred geometry. So in terms of sacred geometry, it is like a vibration. I said it's a vibration, one of the things it can be. And as vibration slows down, it becomes light. And as light slows down, it becomes sound. And as sound slows down, it becomes matter. And sound shapes matter. They actually, if I had time, I would play just a short little YouTube video where they have a vibrating plate and they turn it to a certain hertz and or megahertz, and they'll pour salt on it, and each one represents this really beautiful pattern. And so it's showing that sound comes together and makes patterns. And so as this begins, this vibration slows down and slows down, it becomes more static. It becomes more of a material lattice. And so I just gave a few examples here of some sacred geometry that we see in nature that's become more physical in form. So you've got the sunflower, you have a seashell, you have a beehive. These two right here, the sunflower and the seashell, are actually based on the mathematical formula of the Fibonacci sequence. So the Fibonacci sequence, Fibonacci realized that this sequence existed all throughout the universe. And it's 1, 1. If you add 1 and 1 together, you get 2. And if you add 1 and 2 together, you get 3, and 2 and 3 together. And this progression is what creates like a 1 cube and a 1 cube. And then a 2 cube is twice that. And 3 is 3. And then 5 is going to come down further. And 8 is going to go out here. And 13 is going to come up here. And it creates this circular pattern in how sunflowers grow and how seashells grow and how our ear is developed, that there are these patterns all around us. We also have heard, and I'm not trying to offend anybody or make any claims about this literature, spiritual literature, but people have heard the phrase from the book of John 1, in the beginning was the Word. And they say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, source, whatever you want to call it, and the Word was God. And there's, in this sense, what I want to focus on here is that even words have vibration. So we have vibration happening. They call these the fire languages. So Enochian, Hebrew, Japanese, Egyptian, these are fire languages. And in these fire languages, what they're saying is that the language is so powerful itself that the vibration of the language itself will form sacred geometries. Now you go, I don't see a sacred geometry in front of me. But they're saying even in the speaking of it, forms are being created within you, around you, and by you. So this kind of sense of the fire language and the languages that are created, they're forming these sacred geometric patterns. And so this is why people will say, like, they want to go back to these old ancient fire languages because they can feel the power in them. We also, I have as an example, a friend of mine, it's one of her primary gifts, Amy Moscow, is she is continually given by Spirit sacred geometric shapes. And she creates these shapes, and she has affirmations that go with them. And she attaches programs through crystals to these shapes. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more later. So she was given these shapes in a very odd way. They were like, okay, we know you don't know Egyptian, and she had this book, and they would send her to a page, and then they would send her to another page. But these represented the masculine and the feminine, and the words that go with it, the Egyptian words are I, Ra, Mut, Ra'it, Nuk. The Egyptian meaning, I am the sun god Ra, and the goddess Ra'it of black light. And you're like, black light. Black light is like the womb where things are created. And what they're saying is there's a masculine and a feminine that creates together. And they said, when you say these words, you are saying, I know that I am God. And I'm going to talk about this more on day 3 when it comes to manifesting, because one of the primary keys for manifesting is standing in who we are and remembering that we are God. So this is just an example of using language with sacred geometry. We also have an example of Emoto, if you know of him. He realized that words created certain crystalline patterns in water. And so he was saying the words like compassion, and you can see here is the crystalline shape that was formed, or thank you, or wisdom. But he also realized that other words, like I will kill you, created these what almost seemed like they were deformed crystalline patterns. But afterwards, he realized that he could just write it on, let's say, a bottle of water, and it would still create these beautiful patterns or these deformed patterns. And then they also realized they could just think the thought, because our thoughts create a vibration, and vibration creates sacred geometry. So when we think about the fact that we are primarily made of water, that our planet is primarily made of water, our thoughts are consistently either creating these beautiful crystalline shapes within us and around us, or deformed shapes that look more like I will kill you and you fool. This is why they spent time even going to polluted lakes and waters and pouring into them beautiful crystalline words of water, and have completely reformed an entire lake because of that. Again, at any point, if you have a comment or a question, please ask. We also have, go ahead.
But I don't want to take too much time on you, even when you record it as well. But it makes so much sense, and I actually worked with this in yoga as well. So I think our worlds are really entwined a lot. And I guess Sanskrit is also, one of the oldest languages. So when
Absolutely.
we do that in yoga therapy, we personalize a practice, yoga practice, with your breath and with the intention and with the mantra, and you actually say the mantra while you do your practice yourself. And that's, and actually I wanted to do right now. So it's like, okay, I just saw this 1 or 2 days ago. I'm like, I really don't have time, but I need to go because something pulled me here. And I actually just talked to a colleague who made a project, like a study of exactly using mantras and vibrations. And now today I read that there is a Danish scientist working for years in the Danish healthcare system, which I, left because of the old-fashioned whatever. But I still work, want to combine the best from both worlds. Just, the Western way of being able to take pictures and show and measure and and explain why all this works, that they have been working, for 5,000 years. So it's just, oh wow, I'm just like, yeah, clapping my hands and just want to listen to you more. But it makes so much sense,
It does. One of the first mystery schools are schools that have held ancient knowledge on the planet. One of the first mystery schools was created by Pythagoras, mathematician, right? He saw math all around him and sacred geometry all around him. All right, thanks for sharing. Schumann resonance. So the Earth has this magnetic field that looks like a donut. We call it a toroidal field, and it vibrates like a drum. We call it the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And this vibration has been at 7.83 hertz for the longest time. But in the last 2 years or more, it's been spiking well over 300 hertz. And this is because Mother Earth has now anchored into the new paradigm. She is fully into 5D, and her heartbeat has changed, which means we are all, whether you want to or not, are being pushed to ascend into this new paradigm. And so Mother Earth's, heartbeat keeps doing this human resonance spiking, and it's a way of pushing us now. It's a way of pushing us into this new paradigm, right? So we may not want to go, but some even may go kicking and screaming. But this is another example of the vibration and sacred geometries that are occurring. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 keys of heaven: pentagrams, pentagons, cross, hexagonal, octagonal, and some examples of these and how you might use them in sacred geometry. So it'll be a little bit about what those shapes mean, what they're about, what they bring in energy-wise, and then I want to just talk about how would somebody use this. All right, so the first three keys of heaven is either a circle, a sphere, a triangle, or a pyramid, a square, or a cube. And so the first key of heaven is a triangle or a pyramid, and it can represent spirit. It's the element also of fire, and it is oftentimes connected to the color red. It's a symbol of creation, and it's used to connect us to, you might not like the word God, source, the great central sun, whatever you want to call it, but it's a way of connecting us there. The square or the cube represents our soul. So pyramid red is triangle, square or cube is soul. It also represents the elements of air and water. Like air would be light blue and water would be more of a dark blue. It represents our mind and emotion together. And the cube represents humanity, our home. And it creates an energy of connection with the collective consciousness. A pyramid that has a cube underneath it represents spirit, Holy Spirit. I don't want to make this religious where people get caught up in something, spirit or Holy Spirit. And then the third key is a circle or sphere, represents body or earth. It typically is connected to the color green. It's the completion of things, the ending of a cycle, and therefore the beginning of a new cycle. And the sphere is used to direct energy towards grounding in our physical body, and it's for creating a connection with Earth, Mother Earth. And a cube that has a sphere underneath it represents mind. So this is a way of containing a space for sacred work. Now, so what about that? So one of the ways that we can apply what we just talked about, you've got the pyramid, which is spirit and fire, and the cube, which is air and water and soul, and the sphere, which is body or earth. We can use these, and I have them in this order in particular, to as a Merkaba. A Merkaba is like a vehicle, right, that we travel in. And so you can use these to travel in astral travel. Now, some of you will say, I don't know how to astral travel. I have an astral travel class. I can teach you all the ins and outs of astral travel. But we all actually astral travel every night. We go to our Akashic records and we record everything we said, thought, or did for the day. So whether you even consciously or aware, you are actually astral traveling. But if you want to astral travel in a way that's, I'm going to say, safe, you would use this vehicle or this Merkaba, because there are 7 spiritual dimensions. When you astral travel, you're going to go up through them and to the place you want to travel to. And most of those dimensions are pretty benign. You have a dimension, the 5th dimension is where all the elements are, the elemental kingdom. But you have dimensions where the unicorns are, the dragons, the elves, the fairies, the trolls, the gnomes. You have dimensions for Pegasus and centaurs. In the 7th dimension is where your Akashic records are. It's also where your sanctuary is, and I'm actually going to take you in this Merkaba to your sanctuary right now so that you can experience it. And but the 1st and 2nd dimensions are not someplace you really want to travel through, probably without being in a vehicle like this, because there are energies that will probably try to attach to you. We have energies that try to attach to us all the time, particularly right now. The astral plane is being compressed, and there are lost souls. And these lost souls are looking for a fix. They're looking for your energy. They're looking for a light bulb. And some of them, they're lost souls because They were attached to things here on earth like alcohol or drugs or sometimes people. And so they're looking to get that fixed. They want somebody who drinks alcohol, somebody who is taking drugs. And so you don't want to end up going through the 7 spiritual dimensions and picking up something you don't want. In the 7th spiritual dimension is also a place called your sanctuary. And this is a really important place because it's your place. It's your place that you've created. It's your place that exists there for you. It's where your higher wisdom lives, even though your higher wisdom is not really separate from you. It's the place where you can make sure that whoever you're connecting to and talking to and working with is really that being. So, in other words, you would like to work with Mary Magdalene. And so rather than say, hey, Mary Magdalene, and then anything can show up and say, yeah, I'm Mary. And you're like, how do I know you're really Mary? So this is one of the great ways to know is you can go up in your Merkaba and your pyramid, your cube and your sphere, and you can go in the 7th dimension into your some spiritual dimension into your sanctuary, and you can ask your higher wisdom to bring Mary Magdalene to you. Now, this is a surefire way to ensure that you're working with the being that you want to. So these are little things that I help to teach people. And I even when I've taught people, they forget, and I'll say, well, that doesn't sound quite right. And I'll go, did you ask for that angel or ascended master? Did you have your higher wisdom go and get the person? And they go, oh no, I forgot. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably why something feels off, right? That there's something that it's just a way to ensure that you're getting pure information and what you want. So close your eyes, don't close your eyes, whatever you want to do. I'm going to take you to your sanctuary in our Merkaba. Okay? So just be relaxed. And I want you to imagine coming down over your head a large pyramid. And the pyramid's empty inside. And as it starts to come over your head, you can feel on the sides the texture of the pyramid. You can sense how big it is. You can even smell it. If it has a particular scent, maybe it's shiny and glistening. Maybe it is textured, and you're going to feel that come over you. And as you're sitting there inside this pyramid and you're feeling it, you're with all your senses, taste, smell, touch, sight, whatever senses are coming to you, the floor begins to open up and you begin to sink down as it unfolds into a cube underneath the pyramid. And you just floating down into that cube. And same thing, you're using all of your senses to see, feel, know that cube. And as you're sitting there in the cube and you can see up through the cube, the pyramid is still sitting on top. The floor begins to open up and you lower down now into a sphere. And you're floating in that sphere and you are feeling, sensing, tasting, smelling all that you can in that sphere. And as you look up, you notice that the pyramid opens up at the top like a flower. And as it opens up at the top, you're going to shoot straight up through the cube, through the pyramid, up, 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 all the 7 dimensions until you hit the 7th dimension. And you're going to step out. And when you step out, you're stepping out now into your sanctuary. Now, for everybody, this is going to be different. For some people, you're going to see something right away. For some, it's going to be just clouds and mists. It might be a meadow, trees. You might have a doorway that you're going to go through. It might be just a tree. It might be a sphere that you walk into. Everybody is going to be different, and it can change over time and probably will. But you've stepped out now into your sanctuary. And as you're in your sanctuary, you're just going to look around. What do you notice? Does it have boundaries? Are there walls? Are you in nature? Are you indoors inside a room somewhere? And now I want you to look around for an object that's anywhere near you that will represent your higher wisdom. And the object can look like anything. It can be a symbol, it could be a color, it could be a small metal object, animal, some carving from wood, an object that represents your higher wisdom. And I want you to take a key right now. A key is just going to appear before you, and you're going to attach a key to that object. The key can be an old-fashioned key. It could be a kind of key you use to get in your home. It could be a key card. It doesn't matter what the key looks like, but you're going to attach your object to that key. And now, no matter where you're at, whether you're in misty clouds or in a tree or in a room or outdoors, you're going to find a door. Look for a door that's nearby. Could be any shape, any length, any height. And you're going to take that key and you're going to put it in the door and open it up and allow in your higher wisdom. Put the key in the door now. Open the door. Bring in your higher wisdom. Close the door. Lock it again. And you are now looking at, talking to, connecting with your higher wisdom. And again, this higher wisdom, you might see lots of details. Maybe you've been working with your higher wisdom for a while. Maybe it's just misty. Maybe it looks like something else, like a dragon. There's no right or wrong. Introduce yourself. What do you notice? Okay, this is going to be a short visit. So I want you to give a gift to your higher wisdom. Be anything. Give a gift. Receive a gift back from your higher wisdom. And you're going to now open the door, and your higher wisdom is going to go back through the door. You're going to lock the door with the key, and now you're going to place the gift and the key somewhere. Somewhere when you go back to your sanctuary, you're going to go back to that table and pick up the key. All right, so maybe there's a table, a place on a stone, maybe it's a rock, maybe there's a bowl there, whatever you want, you're going to put the gift and the key there. And now I want you to walk back to the place where you stepped into your sanctuary, back to that place. Just imagine yourself getting back into your little Merkaba vehicle, and you step back and you're coming back down through the dimensions to where we are right now. All right, that's a simple example of a way to use sacred geometry. And it's a protective vehicle that you're using. Astral travel uses something very similar, although the sphere stays within the cube, and there's a way that you get to it that's different than what we just did. I can teach you more about your sanctuary, more about your higher wisdom. I can take you on trips with astral travel in other classes. It's not really what we're doing today, but I wanted you to get a feel for just a simple way that people use sacred geometry. Does anybody want to share anything about what you experienced? You can either take yourself off mute or you can put it in the chat. Go ahead. Are you trying to share, Birgitta? I Can't tell. No? Okay, I just saw you moving your arm. All right. Feel free
Kimberlee,
to enter. Yes.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say, this is my first experience with this kind of thing. So with the when you let the higher wisdom in, that's just whatever comes to you, right? It's not a form, a person, a place, a thing. It's just whatever comes to you in whatever form,
Well,
shape it is.
in the beginning, oftentimes people's higher wisdom can look just like misty cloud. Sometimes it looks like a dragon, but as you spend time over time continuing to go back to your sanctuary, your higher wisdom will take form. My higher wisdom is very masculine and feminine, which doesn't surprise me because I have a lot of both of those for myself. She's curly, really curly hair, and he, even know. And it kind of wears this somewhat of a flowing gown, but I wouldn't necessarily say that she is she. She can also be he. She's just almost hermaphroditic, probably. And, after working with her over time, we have ways that, like, we have signals for each other. She gives me a distorted face when something's off. I'm like, oh, something's off, right? Like, you develop this relationship over time. It's part of what I teach in sanctuary meditation, is you spend more time going into your sanctuary, really discovering it, working with your higher wisdom. It's a good question. Thank you. Somebody wrote something in the chat. What if you see nothing? There could be a couple reasons. Sometimes there's like a focal point that people have to access, and 90% of the people access it and get in their sanctuary right away. And sometimes people miss that focal point. And so when I would work with people one-on-one, I would just move them. I'd say, where's their focal point? It's over here. And I'd just shift them, and then we would do it again. So since I'm not with you physically, I would just say, try to shift your perspective and then do it again. So your higher wisdom's there. And your higher wisdom wants to work with you. So it may be that you missed your sanctuary. It may be that something happened with the opening of the door. You definitely want to have a key, though, that lets your higher wisdom in. And honestly, the masters, there is no separation between you and your higher wisdom. This is more of like a beginning to really have a sense and develop that relationship if that's something that you haven't been doing for a while. Okay? Hope that answered it. All right. Next. There are other symbols like the pentagram. People immediately think of evil and Satanists, and they do. They use the upside down pentagram, Luciferian Satanists, the Cabal, the Illuminati. But the original pentagram, and if you can see here, this is what was meant in the Vitruvian Man. You've got up here, down. Can you see my little arrow? And then over here and across and down. So this sense with the legs out is a creating of a pentagram, which represents humanity, and it's a symbol of power. So a lot of these ancient societies, mystery schools, mystery societies, they use this symbol and they place it. It's one of the things I'm going to talk about, but they'll use it to place it in a room, to put sacred geometry all around a room to give it more power so that when they're doing work in there, things leave them alone, right? So they'll put up kind of and this is something I teach in Sacred Geometry 1. I teach you how to create a lattice on each wall, the ceiling and the floor, and then we will put the 3 keys of heaven, triangles, squares, and circles around the room to basically inculcate it, to surround it with the power of sacred geometry. So a lot of times these ancient warriors, like the Knights Templar, they would use these pentagrams and they would push it onto not only walls, they would push it toward If they were working to try to remove a dark energy, a demon, or something that was unwanted, they will use a pentagram to do that. Okay, and then they will push it. So oftentimes they would do things like fiat lux is Latin, and it means let there be light. So they would tone fiat lux, and they would draw a pentagram and then push it toward something they were trying to remove. Probably more than you wanted to know. The cross is here up and down and then straight across. So in the Vitruvian Man, he's representing the cross and he's representing the pentagram. So both. So the cross represents spirit. And it also represents the four elements, north, south, east, west. It represents fire, water, air, and earth. And the Knights Templar used this as their symbol to represent spirit and the power of the four elements. If you also notice in the cross, and I put those boxes there in particular, if you fold up the top of the cross, fold it upward and fold the things that go out in, you've got three sides of a box, and then these two here fold up, and then you would have the cover of a box. So we have in the cross also the cube, and the cube is you. And the cube is your soul. So there are a lot of things going on when people are using these symbols. It didn't come, like it wasn't just that he decided to draw a man that stood out here. There was a reason why he picked these particular positions. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about Stargates, creation grids, and communication grids. Now, this is going to feel maybe a little over your head, and I'll keep trying to give some examples. But this is a system that's working, okay? So a pentagonal shape, that's right here. You've got five-sided figure, and then you've got another one that's overlapping it. It's a Stargate. Now, a Stargate is where information is coming in. Information comes in through a Stargate. And then it gets distributed to what we would call like a recorder. And information is pulled. It gets pulled from that right here, the communication grid. It gets pulled, and then it gets sent over to a creation grid. And that's a 6-sided. So this one's 4, which also can be 8-sided, and this one's 3, which can also be 6-sided. So let me tell you kind of how this works. You have asked for something in an intention. Now, a lot of people are asking for things all the time and don't remember, don't realize, and don't know. Okay, our beliefs, our thoughts are constantly asking for those things from a Stargate all the time. Which is why a big part of what I do with healers and light workers is I help them to manage their creations, right? So that you are not unknowingly, by your belief system, thinking something the opposite of what's really you want. Like you may say, I want abundance, but you have all these thoughts and beliefs that say, I'm not worth it. Nothing ever good happens to me. I can't have it unless I work really hard. And you've got these conflicting things going on. And so I hope that doesn't continue. And so the Stargate is like, okay, I'm going to pull in abundance, but I'm also going to pull in fear, and I'm going to pull in self-sabotage and doubt energies. And so we've got these conflicting energies. So the Stargate is pulling it in, and then it's distributing what you're asking for into basically this communication grid. And it's part of a recorder system. It's like Atlantis had libraries and all the crystal skulls. There are libraries all over, but you couldn't think of the library in Alexandria, but there are actual etheric, energetic libraries all over. I took a fantastic trip to Egypt, and those libraries were just being downloaded in me like crazy. But these libraries exist, and they're pulling everything it can from the library to meet your intention. And then it sends it over to this hexagonal creation grid, and it creates an energy pattern. So you have to know, you probably have a bunch of energy patterns in you that aren't working for you. You have a bunch of energy patterns that aren't helpful, that are working against you, that have to be undone. And then you want to create the energy patterns that do work for you. So this is how this works. Now, this is one example, and I don't want it to be too complex, but this is an example of my altar. Okay? So what I'm saying is I've created an altar. It's right here to the left of me. And I'm saying that I want this to be working for me on a consistent basis that is effective. So underneath here is the Stargate crystal, and it goes up here to this distributor. So I have a list of, let me see here. I don't know. Can you see this? I have a list of maybe 30 intentions that I'm asking for. I'll give you a few examples, okay? I choose to co-create with like-minded people. I choose to bring into my life those who want to grow and become a team. I choose to trust, stand firmly in, and convey with complete faith my highest inner truth. I choose to honor myself and others by exercising discernment in my communications. I choose to trust in my divinity and the divinity of others. I choose to trust in my divine abilities and knowingness. I said, who do I want to be in the world? And this didn't come easily. This went over time, and this is something I do in coaching. Is I help people to write very specific intentions for who they want to be in the world and how they want to live and how they want to live out their life purpose, right? So I am pulling through this Stargate right here, all the energies I can. Now, this Stargate's pulling from the universe. It's pulling from my DNA. It's pulling from my higher wisdom. It's pulling from my Akashic records. It's pulling from Mother Earth. It's pulling from all of these sources. Pulling. And it goes up to this Stargate crystal. And then it comes over here. That's what these lines are. It comes over to these 4 crystals here. And these are recorders. This is where it's going into every library it can. It says, okay, if Kim wants to trust in her divinity and the divinity of others, what will she need to do that? She'll need to remember she's God. She'll need to have a stronger sense of trust in what she's getting and what's coming to her, right? So it's pulling from these libraries, and it sends it over. These little red lines that said this one sends to here, and this one sends to here, and this one sends to here, and this one sends to here. It's sending over to a creation grid, and it's creating an energy pattern in me of those things so that I can live the highest manner of success. Now, I'm showing you this example because most people don't even know what sacred geometry is. And this is a high level of using sacred geometry to your highest and best interest. Now, I teach how to build this altar and what this altar is and what it's made of in Sacred Geometry 1. But this is another example of a way that people use these Stargates, etc. You can also use these to anchor energies in your field. That means in your aura, in your person, and also on the planet. So some people know that I was called maybe 2 years ago to light up an old Atlantean crystalline network. It was all over the world, but it was dormant and it was disconnected. And they told me where to go. Like, you're going to start in England. And I went to Glastonbury, Tor, and Avebury, and different places. You're going to go to Japan. You're going to go to Egypt. You're going to go to Israel. And these are the energies that I ended up actually anchoring in Mother Earth. Now you can see this is 5 points and 4-sided and 3-sided. And at the time, I didn't fully understand why they were having me do it. Things began to make sense over time. And I realized they are doing these because in particular places on the planet, they wanted things to come through a Stargate. They wanted it to be distributed. They wanted it to be recorded like a library, pulling information. And then they wanted to generate energy patterns like all over the world. Right? But not only was this happening in Mother Earth and in the world, it happens in us. What happens is that the top rotates in one direction and the bottom rotates in the other. And you've got this spinning that's going on. And this is actually happening in you all the time. Every time you have an intention, you are spinning these within your person. So one of the things that I try to help people with is, I'll give an example. We have a spiritual layer where our beliefs are. We have a thought layer where our mental thoughts are, an emotional layer, an etheric layer where things fly around. It's like where the fuel of a plane is, and then our body. And when those things are lined up, we experience vitality, growth, life, joy. And when they're not lined up, we experience dysfunction, dis-ease, right? So let me give you an example of how easily it is to become out of alignment. So if we take the belief that we are all one, then the thought is, I'm one with my brothers and sisters. And the emotion may be that I have compassion for my brothers and sisters, flies around the etheric field and lands in our body in joy and love and peace and harmony. But all we have to do is get cut off on the freeway and yell at someone and flip them off, and we're out of alignment. All we have to do is gossip about somebody, judge another person as not being what we think they should be, when we think they should be, how we think they should be. We are constantly pulling ourselves out of alignment. I do have a system called Sacred that keeps you, not only undoes energy patterns that don't work for you, but it keeps you in constant alignment. Now, it's thousands of pages of programming. It took 10 years to develop. It's something that I was trained in through Amy Mosca, who's a true avatar on the planet, and I highly recommend it. But this is something where we are doing this. We are creating with these patterns in our body. So then my question to you is, what kind of energies do you want to create? What kind of energies would you like to take apart? Right? So maybe you want to create loving energies and peace and forgiveness, and joy and abundance. But there's other kind of energies too, like that we don't even think about. Like, I want high vibrational energies. Right? I want healing energies. I want energies where I enhance my intuition. Or I want energies of empathy or alignment or mastery. I want energies of knowing my divinity, of grace, of my own sense of authority. Like, there's so many things that we can begin to say, this is the energy I want operating in me. And then if I said, what energies would you want to take apart? And feel free to, throw anything in there that you want. I see something's in the chat. Hold on. Be right back. Need to get some tea. That's funny. So most will think of things like, I want to get rid of anger or hate or unforgiveness or vengefulness or spite or depression or self-sabotage or not loving myself or others. But there are other ones too, like being misaligned. I want to get rid of energies that are misaligned, or I want to get rid of disempowerment. Or I want to get rid of fear. I want to get rid of being imbalanced. Like, there's so many things that we can begin to say, I would like to get rid of. So because of talking about bringing in energies and taking away energies, I just want to introduce to you some sacred geometric shapes that bring in energies and or release energies. Okay, and we're going to finish up this way. So this particular shape is actually this one here. This laminate is a class that I teach called Empowered Manifestation. And what happens in this class is you look at a sacred geometric shape and you say a statement related to that. And it brings in those particular energies. Now, the only reason why this works is because there's a crystal attached to this. At first, you had to have a crystal with the laminate, and then we found crystalline powder because crystals can be programmed. And once they're programmed, they can come into your field. So when you hold the laminate and you look at a sacred geometric shape and you say the words, the looking at the shape and saying the words activate the programs in the crystal to activate in you, which is fantastic. I absolutely love these laminates and how they work. So this particular shape right here, which she called it cosmic alignment, this has to do with 7 grid sets. This is the universe grids. This is the earth grids. This is your higher wisdom. These are just examples. This is your higher self or highest good. This is your physical body. This is DNA, and this is Akashic. So when I said these are all the places that we get information from through the Stargate, think of these like hula hoops. I wish I had some kind of circular something, but think of them as like hula hoops around you. Okay, so the universe grid is like a hula hoop, like this round circle is like a hula hoop around you, and it can be shifted off center, right? It can be off your central core. So when you are asking for something, how many times people pray, oh God, oh source, please give me blah, 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 right? And it's our way of asking for some kind of energy, some kind of response, some kind of help, it's okay. We're meant to be supported by the universe. But our request can't even get out because these hula hoops are off alignment. And the information can't come back because they're off the alignment of our central core. So this is one of the things I'm going to talk about on day 3 on Sunday, is one of the reasons why people often are not able to manifest what it is that they are intending to bring in, is because this is just out of alignment. Your car needs a tune-up. You got to bring these hula hoops, these grid sets, it's called the 7 grid set, they need to come into alignment. So that's one of the things that this card does, is you look at this shape, which really represents all of them together, and you make a statement about this alignment, and the crystalline powder acts in you to bring those into alignment. Now notice, it's a part of a manifestation card, right? Because it's a piece that's going to help you to manifest. This is actually a class that I have pre-recorded. You could always order online if you wanted, or if you wanted to take it from me, you could do it live or in person. But this is an example of a sacred geometry and how it would be used. Here's another one. Another class on enhancing intuition. So this one is this down here. We actually have 5 psychic receptor networks. This one is called clairomniscience. It's a galactic one. This is clairaudience. That's our inner hearing. Claircognizance, our inner knowing. Clairsentience, our inner feeling. And clairvoyance, our inner seeing. And there's a triangle that is in us that if you are tapping and looking at that shape and saying the words, and the words are, it's something like, I choose to bring in light language in the clearest and most comfortable manner. It's something like that. But you're tapping on these particular areas, and it will open up and heighten your clairs. Now, I did this for months, and my entire ability to communicate with spirit changed, right? Using this sacred geometry, using this tapping and making a statement in the crystalline powder, it changed and it basically cleared, opened, balanced, aligned, and calibrated all of my psychic receptors and networks. Okay, so that's another example. Here's another one. It's this one right here. It's called Reservoir of Grace. People think of grace as like amazing grace, how sweet the sound, but this is your Reservoir of Grace is all the information and tools that you've collected over hundreds, if not thousands, of lifetimes. And there's actually a place that you keep it in, which you would get up here, called your vault. And this Reservoir of Grace, it's like, you don't have to know everything because you've had so many lifetimes that you probably have tools already that this opens up that toolbox so that you can begin to access what you desire and need in terms of your whatever you're trying to accomplish, right? Like, how great would it be to be able to use a sacred geometric shape and be able to access this ancient knowledge, tools, and everything that you would need in a more immediate manner. Like, from using this, I realized I was a key holder in Egypt, and that I am to give people keys, right? That I have keys to give people, right? Or that I was connected to not only the Circle of Mary, but also the Temple of Isis, right? So there's different things. Like, what does that give to me? Is there something that I need there? Sometimes there is, that I need to go there, and there's something that I need to access again. And we got 2 more minutes. Whoops, wait, one more. There are also things like that you can use sacred geometry for, like creating a magic circle. I teach that in some of my magic classes, but also in Sacred Geometry 1, gridding and sealing a space, and then creating a temple. Like, people go, temple? But if I'm doing work with clients, I want to do it in a temple. So you can also use it to create a temple. All right, that's it. And then just don't forget, I'm posting a homework question. It's already set up to be posted in 10 minutes after this is done. If you answer it, you're in for a free drawing. And I'm giving away like classes and or clearings and or products. And don't forget, tomorrow's clearing energy, Sunday's manifesting abundance. And if you end up signing up for anything, any kind of class or whatever during this time, which it's okay with me if you do or don't, I am giving 10% off. So you just type in the promo code 10 off. All right. Any thoughts, questions, comments?
I have a question.
I sure hope did I go back to recording once I stopped? Please tell me I did. Okay, who had a question? Go ahead, Jeanette.
So where are we answering the homework question at, on Facebook page?
I have it posted on the Soul Alignment community. So that's where you would do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Oh, Roxana.
No, I was just going to say thank you. It's good to see you.
You too.
And sorry I missed the first 16 or 17 minutes. I was wrapping up a coaching session.
No worries. People do what they can do.
I don't have questions because I have like too many questions for there to be one question.
Well, that just means we'll have to Zoom later, right?
That's right.
There's also, on Monday, I'm doing a follow-up Q&A. So if anybody wants to pop in on that, you could always, because sometimes they come later or you think about it and you go, well, I'm not really sure about that, you know. All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great day. Bye.
Or evening. Bye.
Or evening.